Hello there, my name is Teleola and this is Career Talks with me. So, the purpose of this is to showcase Nigerian trained lawyers who are now in the diaspora doing amazing things. So, they'll be sharing their personal experiences, and this would help those who are looking to tow a similar path as them. This promises to be value packed. Make sure you stay tuned. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I have a special guest. We were colleagues at UUBO and he's fondly known as Baba K or Uncle K. But yeah, let me be serious. So his name is Kayode. Well, let me let you introduce yourself. So please give us a brief introduction.
Thank you. I don't know. Should I say welcome to Teller's YouTube channel? Yeah, my name is Kayode Olugbemi. I am a lawyer. I work with Teller at Odoma Bello Sadia back in Lagos, Nigeria. Simple. Currently, I live in Calgary, Canada. So
Yeah, okay. Okay, so let me just jump right into the meat of the interview. This is why we're here. So, you're a Nigerian trained lawyer and you moved from Nigeria to Canada, right? And so, can I just ask why you decided to make that move from Nigeria to Canada?
okay, I think I'm just going to backtrack a bit on my journey. I actually moved first from Nigeria to the UK. Um, so I did a master's at the University of Aberdeen. It was in commercial law, and while that program was going on, at the time when I was applying to schools in Nigeria, I'd also just applied to Canada. I applied to the UK, and so I got the Aberdeen admission. I got some scholarship that I really wasn't even sure was going to come, and it miraculously came. And so I picked it up, and I was in Aberdeen. And just as I was halfway into that program, I got this amazing opportunity in Canada. My admission came through. It had more than enough funding. Uh, for the first time in a long while, they allowed me to defer my admission because generally they don't allow people to defer. You either take it or leave it. But according to them, they liked my profile, allowed me to defer. And so as soon as I was finishing my program in the UK, I was just ready to roll into the program in Canada. So that just goes back to answer the question why. For me, it was I had gotten a lot of knowledge. We were working in a top tier law firm. We were really doing a lot of work with contemporaries across the world. I mean, as you may remember, telling about 90% of our clients at UEB were not Nigerian clients. They were, companies from around the world. So um, for me, I just felt like there was, even though I was getting on, that experience really working at the firm, there was that thing where I just wanted to learn more. So me leaving Nigeria was primarily motivated by a quest for knowledge. But along that way, other opportunities came, and of course, those opportunities came with significant funding. And so, who says no to extra money?
Hmm. Exactly. like like someone once said, a good appraisal won't pay your bill.
Exactly.
Yeah, so can you share the steps that you took to make this career transition?
Yeah. So like it's very funny. So when I think the basic thing was, first leaving Nigeria to the UK was making that application, getting applying to a scholarship I heard about. Incidentally, it was just a lucky scrolling on Facebook, and I saw, oh, there's this particular scholarship going on. I qualify for this, so I applied to that, and I was called, shortlisted, write the test, did the test, went through all of the processes, and when I expected to hear back from them, there was nothing. Okay, maybe they went on with someone else. Just one day I was in the office and I got a call, come pick up your letter. Ooh, wow. So I did that, and that was how I moved to the UK. And I've already explained how I got that about moving to Canada. But I think importantly is the part of moving to Canada and then trying to become a lawyer here, which is where I guess your question is really going to,
Yes.
how I had to make that switch from um, just being that person who came to a country to do a master's and all of that. So one was, at the moment I came in, I wasn't exactly sure whether I wanted to stay in Canada. Generally, and a lot of people have probably not heard me say this. When I came in, I was a lot thinking about going back to the UK. First, because Canada is far from everywhere. It's super far. The requalification process here is extremely lengthy. It's not as straightforward as or as fast as you becoming a lawyer in the UK if you're able to do the SQE1 and SQE2. But so when I came in, it took a while, but as soon as I made that decision, I just went ahead to commence the process of getting requalified. And to be honest, I would also say a big thank you to some of the friends I had. I have, I made when I got here. They were the ones who encouraged me to, get my head back in the game, stop thinking about going back to the UK. Canada is beautiful. The snow is lovely. And of course, one thing a lot of people will not agree with, we actually have better housing here than in the UK. So basically, I went into the NCA process. So what's the NCA process? That's actually what you need to do for you to requalify as a lawyer in Canada. So I had to first study what I needed to do. There had three stages. The first part of getting your credentials assessed, so they will need to look at all of your documents, your university transcript, your law school transcript, your for me, because I was doing I'd done first masters, I was doing a second masters. I had to send transcripts from both universities. I had to get a letter of good standing from the NBA, the Nigerian Bar Association. I also had to submit an updated CV. Now, just because anybody watching this might really want to go through this process, especially if you're a lawyer and you're moving to Canada, one area where a lot of people make mistakes with their application or the assessment application is that they never pay enough attention to their CV. The way the assessment works is that they're going to look at all the courses you did at undergraduate level and the courses you did in law school to determine the number of exams you're going to write. Now, your CV comes in the sense that you may have had some bad grades in uni. I mean, maybe you didn't have the fantastic grade and all of that, but your CV can show that through experience you have learned and covered a lot more in that area. So, say for example, a person who had a terrible grade in maybe law of contract, right? But if you're able to show in your CV that, you worked at this law firm and your experience in this law firm had you drafting and reviewing contracts over and over again, they are able to make a determination that even though you had a bad grade in uni, in law of contract, now you probably have a clearer appreciation of the principles of the law of contract. And so you likely will not be told to rewrite the law of contract. But if you don't package your CV, or if you don't prepare your CV in such manner that shows that you now have an understanding, they are going to assess you based on the grade you had in uni. And so you find that typically a lot of people would then have to write about 7, 8, some people write up to 12 exams in the NCAs. Meanwhile, if you had good grades as a Nigerian trained lawyer, you had good grades or you had good experience as a Nigerian trained lawyer, you likely would be writing just 5 papers. By the way, 5 papers is the minimum anybody would write. So I only wrote 5 papers. Right. So
Okay. Okay, thank you so much for that because I'm sure so many people are in your DM saying, "Oh, give us advice. What do you think I should do? Help me review my CV." But with that advice, people can tailor their CV in a way that they wouldn't need to write like 12 exams. Okay, so what advice would you have for someone considering a similar career move? So, for someone who wants to move from Nigeria to Canada, maybe in like what 3 or 4 points.
so that's actually very interesting. And one of the things that I've seen the most with people moving from Nigeria to Canada, especially lawyers, is that they come in and many people come in and they just don't want to take on the NCA exams. One is that a lot of people have been so badly traumatized by the practice of law in Nigeria. And I think that it is quite unfair to themselves and to even the legal practice and the legal system in Canada for you to judge what you think will happen in Canada based on your experiences in Nigeria. So the first is that you have to really detach and tell yourself that this is not Nigeria. This is a country where you will be rewarded for your skills and your hard work. So you will get paid properly. You're not going to go to a law firm. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's all rosy, that all law firms are going to pay you something really huge. No. Sadly, I would say that a lot of Nigerian-owned law firms, I'm not saying it out loud, a lot of Nigerian-owned law firms they still have the terrible practices here. But apart from Nigerian-owned law firms, really, a lot of employers are really good. The pay is very commensurate with your level of skill and knowledge and work. The working environment is better. There are a lot of benefits. So first, detach yourself from that scar, that trauma that you're coming with from Nigeria. That's the first thing. Secondly is that the exams are not as difficult as people think they are. To start with, the exams are open book. So which means you can go into the exam with all of your materials. The only catch is that you cannot use soft copies. So you have to print all of your materials. You have to buy all of it. If you want to buy the textbooks, you can buy the textbooks. There are tutorial schools that they have ready-made materials that you can buy for $30, $40 per course. So you can really have access to all of these materials and you can do a self-study. Of course, some people also choose to go through some universities. Some universities offer that pathway where it's more or less like you're going through say a master's degree, but it's just not a master's degree, it's an NCA qualification route, but it's a lot expensive. So what you'll find is that a lot of internationally trained lawyers, when they move to Canada, they actually go through the self-study route. And like I said, it's not a difficult exam. Personally, I wrote that exam. I was working. I was working two jobs. I was writing a master's thesis. In between me writing the exam, I lost a friend, and I wrote all 5 papers in I think 4 months. Really, so it's really easy, and you don't have to follow my own. And this is what I've seen with a lot of people when they talk to me. You don't have to follow my own step or something, or the way I went around about my own. People generally think that maybe I don't know, I'm not crazy, but people just think I'm able to do a lot of things. Personally, I find a lot of motivation when I'm multitasking, when I'm doing so many things at the same time. But that may not be your style. What happens with the NCA is that at the beginning of the year, towards the end of the previous year, they release a schedule of exams. So you can easily pick it up and see the exams that will be available in January, February, March, April, May, June to December. So each of these exams will happen at least 3 times a year. So there's no need to rush yourself.
You can pace yourself.
You can pace yourself. Right. And again, because the exams are slightly expensive, I think each of the exams, now I wrote my exams a while back, so I'm not absolutely sure how much each paper would cost, but probably around $400 to $500. So
oh wow, per paper.
So you want to space yourself, especially if you're just transiting. You're also mindful of your finances. You probably are just working a transition job at the time, so you may not be that buoyant to want to take all of the papers at the same time. So that's also another thing for you to consider. The other part of it is that it's a process that tests your patience. And I say this because it's not just, unlike the UK, it's not just about you writing the exams, or even the US where you just write the exams, you pass, and then you get a call to a bad date. No. The way it works in Canada is when you do that, you actually have to then do 1 year of articling. in a law firm. And getting that 1 year of articling can be really challenging. And why is it challenging? It's that it's not a process that is restricted to you as an internationally trained lawyer. No. So you are not just competing with your fellow ITLs, you're also competing with homegrown lawyers who have just finished their JD degrees in Canadian universities. So the way they are applying to get an articling position is the same way you are applying to get an articling position. So
Okay, so I guess it's similar to the training contract
yes,
program here.
yes, similar to the training contract program in the UK. So what that does is that when you that coming into when you're making the application, a lot of firms, again, are also not very used to internationally trained lawyers. You're coming with 4, 5, whatever number of years of experience. They have someone who's fresh out of school. There are so many things for them to consider. So some don't understand your accent. Some just don't know how much you know about the Canadian system. Some just don't like you because you're black. That's the reality. So
In
all
this
of
day and age,
oh well, there's just so many things about it, about how it works. And then there's also the part where certain classes of law firms have a structure that generally does not favor you as an internationally trained lawyer. Not because they have any bias against you, but it's just the way those type of law firms all across the world function. And what do I mean by this? It's that they take people in classes. So Tyler, you'd recall that the way we entered UUBO in Nigeria, being the top law firm, we were the class of 2017, 2018. Yeah. So it's the same thing with big law firms. So if you are a top, if you are the kind of person who sees yourself as a top tier lawyer, you only want to work at a top tier law firm, you've got to understand and appreciate that you probably may have a lengthier process of you being called to the bar than somebody who is open to working at a small law firm. So for instance, before I finished my NCA exams, if I was ready for articling, I was working at a legal services company. And the moment I was done, I've always been a top law firm or nothing kind of person. I don't ever see myself working at a small law firm or a mid-sized firm. You know. So
yeah.
So it was difficult, right? Because the big law firms, the way the big law firms here function, most of them would prefer that you work first as a summer student. So you come in during the summer and you work for 4 months. So during that 4 months, one, they can assess your skills, see how smart you are, and see whether you can fit into the culture. So I applied. I got a summer position, but excuse me, I got a summer position and I was going to take that, but that was not an articling position. Quite frankly, I didn't need a summer position. But because I already know the type of lawyer that I am, I know the practice area that I've done in Nigeria and that I want to continue to do, that I wouldn't get that at a small firm, I opted for that lengthy process. Because what that means is, for instance, I did my summer position last year summer, and then not like I was sure I was going to get an articling offer from them, because what if they didn't like me? What if I couldn't fit into the culture? But then in between that, I got my articling offer from them, and then I will be starting that later this year. Thank you. But you see where the difference is here is that the legal services company where I was working before, because they also didn't want to let me go, they offered me an articling position.
Oh, right. So now you have two.
No. So not even that. So in January of last year, so they didn't want me to take up the summer position so that I could stay with them. But the type of law that they practice is not the type of law I see myself doing long term. So I turned it down. So I chose to go through the lengthier route just because I am a top law firm kind of person. So if I could, I sat down beginning of last year, was probably like around January 5, January 6, and that was the confusion I had for the first few months of the year. Do I take up this thing and just do it? I just get called to the bar and I can have that big party, big celebration. Everybody's calling me the Lord, the Lord, the Lord. Or would I really do what I find satisfactory for my career? So you've got to make that decision early enough. You've got to know the type of lawyer that you are, which is what happens with a lot of persons. Because I have seen a lot of people who come into Canada and then they're trying to go through the process, and they're just applying to every type of law firm. The truth is that in Canada, there are some types of law firm, and it's not pride that we will never see my resume. They will never, because I do not see myself there. But if you know the type of law that you want to do and you just quickly want to get called to the bar, you may find it easier to get into some law firms and just get your articling done.
Yeah, so like I'm hearing from what you said that it's important to know what you want
Yeah,
and to go for it. Always keep your eyes on the prize.
yeah,
Yes, and yeah, even though it might cost you time or money, just go for it
let's go for it.
because
Yes,
the reward is greater and the satisfaction that you would get is worth it at the end of the day.
absolutely.
Okay. Yes. So, are there any more points on the challenges that one might face?
Yeah, I think with the challenges, it really would be, first understanding the way lawyers and people in these law firms work. I think unlike the way legal practice is in Nigeria, where your boss comes into the office or the partner comes in, you already know these are the partners you're working with. And so your partner just sends you an email. So we are working on this now. We have a call tomorrow. You know exactly what to do. The culture is a little different here. So you'll find that you literally have to go after your partners to get work. So
Oh,
you've
really?
got to see the partners or even more senior associates, to you when you're in any of these firms as your client. You've got to see them as your client. So you go to them to say, is there something I can do for you today? Is there a transaction you're working on? So that's when the person remembers, oh, actually, I have a nice deal for you to work on. Guess what? If you didn't go to the person, that deal has always been sitting down in the person's office, on the person's laptop. But it's never
So,
going
who
to
would do
remember.
it?
Yeah. If you don't
Would they
come,
do it by themselves?
no. So the point is, there are so many people that are going to ask for that work. So it doesn't matter that you are a capital markets associate in a big law firm or that you're a banking and finance associate in a big law firm. Guess what? There's 70 of them, especially if you're thinking of a big law firm, like someone like me, there's like 70 people who are interested in that work. So if you don't go, well, someone else is going to get the work and get the billable hours and get all the recognition and appraisal. So you've got to think in such a way where you see the people you're working with as your clients, so the partners. So now that you have more or less 2 or 3 clients. First, the partner, the person you're reporting to, and then the external client.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one just has to be proactive. So you don't go
Proactive,
there and then sit down and you're
waiting for work.
just
You don't wait for work.
floating. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. So that ties into my next question. I was going to ask about any culture shock
No,
that you
absolutely. Yeah, I used to think that I loved taking coffee, and I mean, before I could take as many cups of coffee in a day. But I think one of the first culture shocks you will find in Canada is that you probably don't like coffee as much as you were thinking. They love coffee more than you do, and so everything is really tied to how interesting you can be over a coffee chat.
okay.
So, and this is one thing, and also it took me a long time to realize that I actually don't have to have coffee if I go on the coffee chat with somebody. So, because I'm saying this because I've met a lot of Nigerians here who talk about this, who complain about this, that must I go on the coffee chat? Absolutely, because what they're doing at that coffee chat is, apart from listening to you or hearing you talk about what you can do, which most of the time they probably may not even talk about work. They're talking about certain social things, trying to get to know you socially. And then that will determine if they can spend time with you. The other culture shock that you would also really find is that, especially for lawyers or for legal rules, is that a lot of the interviews you may not even be asked any question that has to do with law. So I found that Canadians spend more time, they devote more time to trying to know whether you're an enjoyable person to work with. So the interviews, you might do 4, 5, 6 rounds of interviews where they're basically asking you social skills questions. So you've got to know how to answer those kind of questions. Importantly, relating them, I would always say the STAR method: situation, task, action, and result. That's something you want to really pay attention to. Um, I think I remembered one other culture shock, but that just ran away from my head. But importantly, yes, also attend events. Uh, you'll be surprised that people are paying attention to how you go to these events. One other thing is like your dressing. I think it's still one of those things I struggle with in Canada, and that's because it's just a huge culture shock from where we're coming from. There's certain types of events that, if you were told in Nigeria, your natural disposition is for you to be well suited up and you're all doing all of that, you're looking so sharp, and then I've been to some of those events and I'm like overdressed, and then I've been to some others where my Nigerian sense would say you go semi-casual or something, and I go there and everybody's wearing suits, and it still happened to me in December, as recently as December. So, um, you know,
Don't they write the dress code or?
they probably won't say. They would just say, look nice, look exquisite, but you get there and then it's different. So there are just a lot of these things where I think more importantly is ask questions. If you're not sure, ask people, ask, what do you think? How should we approach this? And I think, and then one final one would be small talks. Where we come from, we don't really do a lot of small talks, but small talks are really important here. Never start an interview trying to go straight to the point. They'll consider you rude. Ask, make small talk. Ask about the weather. Ask them what they did over the weekend. You know, and of course, for you to be willing to share, but don't overshare, which is where a lot of people also
That's
struggle.
another important point. Yeah.
Yeah, so small talk is really important, and it's one of those things we don't do where we're coming from, but it's an important social skill here. And like I've mentioned, the bulk of whatever interview you're going to do, or either try to get articling, trying to get into a proper associate position, or any other type of role, really, the the bulk of it would factor on your social skills and your acceptability to see whether or not people would like to be in the office with you.
Okay. Yeah, because even here in the UK as well. Oh, are you doing anything nice for the weekend? Oh, how was your weekend? Initially, I was like, what's your business with my weekend? But it's important,
Important,
yeah.
really
And it's
important.
important to also go for all the drinks, like, oh,
Oh my
Thursday
god.
evening, team drinks.
Oh my god.
If not, they'll just say, oh, this one is antisocial.
Yes. I mean, the office where I did someone I'll be going back to for articling. Friday 4 p.m. What are you doing? What are you doing at your desk? You should be in the lounge. Everybody's having beer, whiskey, wine. You should come drink. The person who may recommend you for promotion is there. So if you are in the office working and working, you just may not know that you exist.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so I was going to ask about articling, right? Do you have any tips? Because I know some people would want to know, to have tips on how to get an articling role.
Okay, absolutely. So like, I think the first thing with articling is to um, know the type of lawyer that you are. So if because it would make really no sense if you know that you are a small firm type of person mid-sized type of person and you're struggling to get into a top law firm, because you have a nice resume, you have all of those things, you may be invited to the first stage, second stage, and those things take a lot of time and effort, and then you probably get dropped at the last stage, and that will be very disheartening. So first, know the type of lawyer that you are, and then target those types of firms. That's one. Two is that generally, and it kind of ties back to the first point, generally these firms here operate by a very strict calendar. So, and that's not just because they also want to be wicked, it's also because it's regulated by the Law Society. So the Law Society tells them when they can hire for articling positions, tells them when they can hire for 1L summer positions, 2L summer positions. So a lot of law firms structure their calendar, and it's not like they actually have a choice. They really don't have a choice. So they have to structure their calendar towards what the Law Society says. But here's the exception. The Law Society says that those restrictions don't apply to internationally trained lawyers. So it means that law firms could actually go out of their way to hire you as an ITL, as we call them, internationally trained lawyer, outside of the calendar that has been imposed by law. But not all of them will want to do that. So know the firm that may be flexible with the calendar, and know the ones that it's an absolute bar for them. They're not going to go outside of that calendar. It's like the law firm where I said I was, they're not going to go outside of that calendar. They're not going to go outside of the structure that they have. So if you want to be in that kind of law firm where they have offices in maybe 30, 40 countries across the world, that's what you're looking for, then you probably have to be patient and plan and structure your life around their calendar. Otherwise, you can try out other law firms that are a lot more flexible. Then the third one is that these law firms mostly don't, again, based on the type of law firm you are really trying to get into, most of these law firms don't accept direct applications. So there's a portal, and I find it very strange when I talk to Nigerian lawyers who have just called me that they don't even know that there's a portal where a lot of the big and mid-sized law firms accept applications from. It's called Recruit VDN or VLaw Portal. So if you Google VLaw Portal, VILAW Portal, or Recruit VDN, you will see the link, and then you can go there, create an account, you create an account as a student, not as an employer. Okay. So you create the account, you upload your documents, your cover letter, your CV, your transcripts, all of the documents that each firm will require. And what that portal also does for you, and I think that for everybody that is trying to get an articling position, the moment you start your NCA exams and you have an idea of when you'll be done, you should easily get on that portal. Or maybe even before you finish your NCAs, because a lot of firms here too also recruit for the next year. So they're not recruiting for the year we're in. So for instance, if you are applying for articling this year, except where the firm creates an exemption for you, you're most likely going to resume next year. So you've got to go on that portal. What that portal does is you can see the date the application will reopen and the date it will close. So they have a tab, the session schedule. You will see all of the law firms. So that also helps you tailor and plan your applications properly. Because maybe, say out of, I don't know the number of law firms in Canada, but let's say maybe out of 500 law firms, about 450 are on that portal. And about 450 are going to accept applications from that portal. And this is the beautiful thing. The portal also separates application for different provinces. So, for instance, I'm in Alberta. It means that if I go there, I can click on Alberta and see all the law firms that are open to accepting applications at this time. So, say I attempt to get a position in Alberta and my application was not successful, I can then switch to BC. On the same portal, click BC, British Columbia, and see all the law firms that are open to applications. If BC doesn't work, you go to Ontario, you go to Saskatchewan. So what it does is it removes that stress of trying to go to each law firm's website, trying to do all of that. You have all
So I
of
was
the
going to
information
say, it
sent
makes
to
it
you,
easier
so prepared
for
for
the
you.
applicants.
Yeah. So yeah, that I think that's important. And then of course you will get a lot of one other thing you can really do is that some of the law firms, and I've seen this work so many times, some of the law firms that you're looking at or you're targeting, if you can set up, try to look for some of their staff on platforms like LinkedIn, have chats with them, set up coffee meetings. Now, this is one thing a lot of people don't know. The law firms have a budget for coffee meetings. So, if you set up a coffee meeting with somebody in those law firms, one is that it's a chance to go to a nice restaurant you've not been to for coffee. Well, a lot of them will accept the invitation also because, especially for some of, if you go through the website of that firm, you might see that some of those folks are in the recruitment committee. Those ones are largely obligated to accept your invitation. Even if they can't, they will, or even for those that you reach out to that are not in the recruitment committee, they can refer you to somebody in-house that may have time to have coffee with you. So what it does for you is that when you've met with that person and you are applying, you can name drop them in your cover letter. And that works a lot. I've seen that works a lot in Canada. So usually when they look at that application and you have name dropped somebody, they can then go to that person to say, what did you think of this person when you met him or her? And so again, this is why you then have to take coffee chats seriously. Go there, be impressive, dress well, smell nice, clean your shoes, have a nice haircut, anything that, just little things, have very nice, polite small talk, and develop some interest. Yes, this is one thing that I think I was going to mention too. People care so much about some of the other things you do apart from law here than in Nigeria. Nobody really cares whether you play golf.
Like, do the work.
Just
Who
do the
cares
work.
if you go swimming on Saturdays?
Yeah. The funny thing here is that sometimes there's actually a budget for you, for instance, to go play golf with a client. So if you have a client whose favorite pastime is golf, you need to go to golf with that person. It's like, in July, for instance, Calgary, Canada, we have the Calgary Stampede. You've got to go to Stampede. A lot of clients would have Stampede events. You've got to go to Stampede with your clients. You've got to go to tennis, golf. You've got to go to some charity events with them. So, really, you've got to develop that. And so when you go to those coffee meetings or coffee dates, if you want to call them that, sense what that person likes, make a good impression. Because when you name drop on the cover letter, they're going to ask that person. Now, this is where the problem is. So if they ask somebody, how was the meeting you had with this person, and the person is struggling to even remember your name, there's a problem. So the person is going to be able to remember that I had a nice conversation with this person. It's the same thing for the interviews too. So if you get to the interviews, you will find that if you make it to the final stage, all these law firms always have social events that they will invite you to. It's something you must do to each person you meet. Make sure they can remember you by something. And I'll share an example. When I had my interview, I think I met a guy at the firm who, before he became a lawyer, was a professional fighter, MMA fighter. And so we were discussing Kamaru Usman, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, but I wasn't discussing law with him. I met another person whose husband is a big Chelsea fan. Well, we were discussing Chelsea. Yeah, football. I met another person, and I think we were probably discussing golf and boxing. And so After the event, when I'm sending a thank you email, in each of the emails I'm saying, it was nice to discuss boxing with you. I hope you're going to see the boxing match happening on Saturday. So the person I discussed Chelsea with, her husband was in the UK at the time. So I'm like, I hope your husband has a nice time watching the Chelsea game. So
Okay. So it's just important to know a bit about
everything.
everything.
So at the time when they get
Yeah.
back to their selection committee and they're trying to make the final decision, once your name comes up, the person says it with a smile and is like, oh yeah, that guy. So all of those things are very important. They're
They're
very important.
important.
Yeah,
And these are things that we don't really do in Nigeria. It's just, oh, you can do the work, that's
that's
fine.
fine.
Like nobody really cares. Why are you even watching Chelsea? In fact, in Nigeria, is there time to be watching
With
Chelsea and
Chelsea,
Man United? No
exactly.
time
No
because you're
time.
working 24/7. You just want to sleep or
Yeah,
rest after
exactly.
work. Or yeah, when you have a breather.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. So just one last question because I'm conscious of time, and this has been so much of so much value. It's been value packed. So looking back, right, is there anything that you would have done differently during your career transition journey?
Um, Maybe come to Canada earlier than when I did. I think that just after call to buy, I remember my older brother really being on my neck. Then go to Canada. What are you doing in this country? Go to Canada. I was like, I don't like Canada. It's super cold. Is this that one? I probably should have come to Canada sooner than I did. I think, and again, also when I got to Canada, for the first 1 year, I wasn't trying to stay in Canada. I wasn't trying to write the exams. I wasn't trying to do anything. I was just trying to go back to the UK. And I think that was also a big mistake on my part. So all the time, at the time when I was applying to jobs, I wasn't looking for the big jobs or something. I was just looking for something that would sustain me till I am ready to move back to the UK. And by the time I realized and I woke up suddenly one day, I'm like, damn, I spent 1 year in this country and I've not done anything about my career. I just put it on hold. So for me, doing that it wasn't a smart move on my part. But thankfully, I woke up before it was too late, and I think that uh, just God's grace, I kind of have had a lot of things work for me as quickly as it could have worked for anybody that was trying to go the path that I was trying to go into, like big law and all of that. So, so that one, there's always grace. If you sleep too much, wake up. So there's that. If there will be any other thing, I don't really with career transition and all of that. I wouldn't think that there's anything I would have done differently. I've been very, I know what I want, so I know the type of law I want to do. So I was very focused on that. And so even when I was interviewing with the firms, I wasn't trying to sweet talk you so that you can hire me and then I'll just go and do something else that I have no interest in. Like, no, I knew exactly. I've practiced for this length of years. I already know what I know, and I thrive here. So that's important, to know what you want. But I think it would just be that time that I feel that I kind of wasted. I'll put it that way, trying to chase other things when what I really needed was right in front of me.
But at least you've learned,
Yeah.
and now you're able to advise
Yeah,
people.
just one thing. Sorry for cutting in. I did make a thread. I think I sent you the link to that. Maybe you can also link that. Where I kind of explained here. Yeah. So what I did in that thread was to simplify. I really broke down the entire process of requalifying as a lawyer in Canada, and I think it will really be helpful. I think it's a good primer that answers almost all the questions that you can even have regarding requalifying here. So it's something that you really want to look into, and if you don't have questions afterwards, I'm always happy to answer. Thank you. Thank you. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share. Yeah.